time. So now we've been given another opportunity to deal with it differently. So we need to be professional and make sure we make up for it,
Coach Sarney yesterday before the Vancouver game, which they ended up winning in overtime, thanks to 12 Sports and Cameron Cox on Twitter for that sound. Hockey analyst and part of PHNX Sports been all over this the last 48 hours and for the last 20 years there plus. Steve Peters joins us now on the right to the guest here on Fox Sports 910. I don't even want to start with you, Coach. I mean, yesterday we talked briefly. One thing that we've kind of let's start with this. So the Frank Seravalli, however else you say
Seravalli.
We've been kind of going on with a hypothetical that he has been bought to kind of shed this information, throw out this information, because what we can't seem to figure out is the guy doesn't cover the Coyotes. He doesn't have boots in the ground. He came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden, everyone's listening to him, and this thing has kind of snowballed since his tweet. Can there be anything to that?
Well, the reality is Frank is a hockey insider. He's one of the guys that breaks stories from the league. He's been around for about 15 years. NHL people know him, but you're right. This all comes down to whose sources are correct and whose sources are right. And as part of the media, you can only report what you hear. And at PHNX, we were reporting what we were hearing. And we were hearing it from Alex Morello Sr. We were hearing it from Javier Gutierrez. We were hearing from contacts within the league that this was never mentioned, that this team would be moving to Salt Lake City within days. And all of a sudden, from Monday, Tuesday to today, how much the narrative has changed. And yesterday was a whirlwind. And it went from, we were talking about the draft and a land auction to the team might be moving literally next week. So this has been a very strange 24 hours here in the Valley.
Where do you think it is right now at 3:36 on Thursday? Where is it the same as it was yesterday? Has anything really moved since yesterday?
Yeah, it's funny how things moved, how quickly things moved yesterday. It really came out with a report that some players had been contacted by the Players Association. And I think there was a miscommunication on what the players were told. I think the first report came out and said, hey, the players were told that the team is moving. That's not correct. The players were told that something is going to happen. There are negotiations going on with moving the team to Salt Lake, and you will be notified at the end of the season before breakup day, which is scheduled for right now to be next Thursday. They weren't told that the team's moving. However, we have since learned that negotiations are well down the road between Morello and the league. The league would broker a deal to Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz, to bring the Arizona Coyotes to Salt Lake City for the 24-25 season and announce that as soon as next week, but more likely the middle of May. There are a lot of hurdles to get to before this happens. And I think people have made this a foregone conclusion that it's gone. Do I think it's close and it's imminent? I do. But when you're negotiating a deal this big with this much money, with this many things factors involved, things can always fall apart. And one of the issues here is Alex Morello wants to have some kind of a guarantee that he's going to be allowed to bring expansion back to Arizona in the very near future. And he's saying between 3 and 5 years. And I think that's a big stumbling block to getting this deal done, is having the league assure and guarantee that he's going to be able to do that. So I think that one little piece of this is holding this up. And I still don't know if it's going to get done. No one knows if it's going to get done. It's closer to getting done than not, but they're not there yet.
Steve, is there anything in the bylaws that could force Morello to sell to the NHL? I mean, we dealt with bankruptcy in the past where the NHL took it over.
And the reality is no, not without lawsuits. And the concern here, and that's why the league is coming out with this trying to appease Morello with giving him an expansion team in the near future or an expansion window, as we said before, to avoid lawsuits, because they really don't want to get litigious in this case, because there is no bylaws saying how big an arena has to be in the National Hockey League for a team to play in. There's nothing stated anywhere, either in the NHL, PA, the CBA, or in the bylaws of the league that says how big a building is. And really the crux of this is the arena. It's Mullet Arena is the problem. And there is no other place to play, but there's no rule saying you can't play there. So they don't want Morello to sue, because if he fights this, the league's going to have a problem. He owns the team, and they can't necessarily force him to sell in extreme cases. But this isn't an extreme case. So they want to appease him. They want to have the sale go smoothly, and they want the team to move to Salt Lake.
Well, Steve, let's face it. They're giving him a Godfather offer, number one, to avoid any suit. $1 billion is what's being reported. Then they'll sell it to Smith, allegedly, for $1.3 billion. There's a $300 million going back to the owners. And I agree with you. When those numbers came out yesterday, I went, bingo, this is a done deal. And on top of that, you just mentioned it. If those owners don't want them in a 5,000-seat arena making absolutely nothing, losing money, this is, I feel, being forced by the owners to Bettman to say, force it, we'll give them a Godfather offer more than it's worth, more so, and then we'll promise them a franchise down the road. Is it that simple?
Yes. It is. It's money.
Yeah.
It's money. This thing, you paid between $300 and $400 million for a team. It is valued somewhere. It depends. You know how between $700,000 and $800,000.
Yeah,
right? Okay. $700 and $800 million.
Yeah.
And they're gonna give you $1 billion.
Yeah.
Man, hey, you're a businessman. The concern though, and what we're still hearing is that they would sell the team, but yet still go to the auction on June 27th, buy the land, build the rink, and try to get a team back. The problem I have with that is, again,
2 minutes.
Money. To do that, to build this, you're going to have to pay money to win the auction. Yeah. You're going to have to pay money to build a facility without a team guaranteed being there. And then the current fees for expansion right now are just over $1 billion. And Gary Bettman said in a Hockey News article that the expansion fees are expected to be between 1.7 and $2 billion in the next 5 years.
Whoa.
So I'm not a math major at college, but that doesn't work. Like I don't see how he's going to go, I'll bring a team back 5 years from now and pay 1.7 5 years from now. I just don't believe it. I think that's just to appease the current marketplace. Sure. I think that's to keep the people happy now. And when he gets the check, I have a hard time believing we're going to see a building at the 101 in Scottsdale. But I may be wrong.
Steve, let me follow up then. When they did not secure the property in Tempe, and because of the vote there, is that when you believe all of this started to take place, the dominoes started to fall?
Yes, and I think there was a push immediately following, within days of that vote failure in Tempe, that this started to move. And I think there was a plan to get this done before the Morellos were able to put in a bid for the state land. I think that was the original plan by the league, is to get this ball rolling, so there would be no question by the end of the season they would move. Morello, he got them to hold off until he was able to secure this land. Unfortunately, it took nearly a year for the state to get this to auction. And I think that delay has really pushed this along, because Morello filed the paperwork for that state land sometime last summer. It just took nearly 8 or 9 months to actually get this through the political system and up for auction. But I think you're right. I think that's when this started. And Ryan Smith, let's face it, he owns the Utah Jazz. He's an attractive owner. The league really wants to be in Utah, and they want to be in Arizona. So one of them's getting an expansion, and so they're just going to reverse the order. Instead of keeping the team here and giving Salt Lake City an expansion team, they'll move the team and give Arizona the expansion team. I do believe there will be a team here eventually, but the fans beware.
And you know,
this isn't 3 years.
In Salt Lake's on the clock with the Olympics and all the stuff they're building. I mean, NHL would love to take advantage of the Winter Olympics there.
Yep.
All right, last one, Steve. If this does happen, what would this do to the growing hockey community, specifically youth hockey? You know, without that anger, that was just all that work that's been laid down.
It's hard, and it's a few things. One, I think you're going to see the numbers drop because kids don't have someone to look up to. I don't think it's immediate. I don't think it's next season. It might not be this season after that. But I do think without people to emulate and look after and root for, I do think you'll see numbers drop. Secondly, we have a lot of retired Coyote players here coaching in youth hockey today. Their kids are playing and they're coaching. That will start to dissipate. And I will think the numbers will start to drop. I am very concerned about that. And thirdly, the Coyotes have given money to youth hockey, high school hockey for years here. That money will now go away. The NHL subsidizes some of the programs like Learn to Skate. Some of that will go away. And I do think you're really going to see a shift in the numbers of kids that are starting to learn to play hockey in the Arizona area.
Steve, keep up the great work, man. You guys are doing, you and the rest of the crew over there at PHNX and Craig Morgan. I just wish this story was coming from Craig, somebody boots on the ground, somebody that's been covering a team, rather than somebody from Philly or North Jersey or wherever it is. So, man.
I know.
Anyway, you guys had a good interview
We'll keep
with
working.
you.
Keep
Got
listening.
it. All right,
and
we will.
When you need to know, I'll get your garbage in.
You got it. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Russ.
Steve Peters joining us again as he had the guy on yesterday, him and Craig. So if you want to listen to that, you can. That's gotten a lot of views. PHNX Sports. So check that out. His Twitter handle is speters_hockey. So there you have it. The latest on the Yotes moving to Salt Lake City. Coming up, what's on tap tonight? There's not much other than what's on right now, but there is a ton of other stuff to dive into. It's Rocket Manuch with Jimmy B, Fox Sports 910.
Check this out. Where is the herd? You're excited. I'm excited. With Colin Cowherd.
Fans are losing their minds after